Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you.
For that powerful message. Wasn't that inspiring?
Oh, thank y'all very much.
It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage our panel. Our moderator is Dr. Cassandra Aska, Deputy Vice President for Student Services here at Arizona State University. You can cheer. You can clap. She's worth it. Dr. Aska provides leadership and strategic direction to support the success of all ASU students. Over her more than 2 decades at ASU, yes, she started when she was 12, right? She has helped shape the student experience across multiple campuses. She served key leadership roles at the West Valley campus, downtown campus, and this Tempe campus. She was a founding member of the inaugural student affairs team that launched the ASU downtown campus in 2006. As a first-generation college student, Dr. Aska earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in biology from St. John Fisher College, Master of Education in Counseling and Student Personnel Services from the University of Maryland, College Park, and her Doctor of Education in Leadership and Innovation here at ASU.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, wait, there's more. So, joining Dr. Aska and Anthony are 3 panelists who each bring unique perspectives on what it means to adapt, persevere, and lead with intention. We have Zeke Jones, who's the head coach of Sun Devil Wrestling, who has transformed ASU into a national powerhouse and mentors athletes in excellence, discipline, and grit. At the end there, we have Shawn, Executive Director of the Pat Tillman Veterans Center, combat veteran and author whose work helps veterans and their families heal and thrive through connection and purpose. And last but not least, we have Sarah Meunch, the founder of Meunch Strategic Communications, a Double Devil, former journalist and advocate for women's sports. Please join me in welcoming our moderator and panelists.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anderson, for that warm introduction. And it's wonderful to see so many of you here, and those of you who are joining us online, it's great to have you here. I just want to say one more round of applause for Anthony Robles. Will you?
Thank you very much.
As panelists, we were looking at each other. We're like, how do you follow this? So we're just going to flow, but the reason this is going to go on is because the questions that are being asked today have come from you. And so we want to honor that part of this experience. So I'm going to start out, Anthony, and ask you if you could think about the answer to this question. You know, I heard a student, maybe last year, who said, "Show me your friends, I'll show you your future." And I found that to be so powerful. And when I think about our graduate students here, some who are here in Arizona, some who are out of state that choose to come here, some who are international and choose to come here, they've got to build community around themselves. So listening to your story, hearing about how powerful your mom was, how powerful your coach and Chris was in your life, how do you help in telling your story, help students figure out how they build community for themselves?
I think what I learned along my journey is that no one can do it alone. It's always important to ask for help. It's important to have people in your life that you can look up to and ask for advice from. And so along my journey, certain people just started to pop up that I really had a lot of respect for. And you mentioned Chris, you mentioned my coaches, certain teammates, and actually there's a couple of them that were in the film. They had cameos because of how important they were in my life. But what I would say is just find those people that you look up to, that you respect, that you want to be like, and that will motivate you, that will push you, that will be honest with you. Because for me, that was also crucial. It's not, they're always just patting me on the back saying, "Oh, you're doing well." It's like sometimes I need to be called out. Sometimes I need that constructive criticism to be coached. That's one thing we say in any sport, but especially in wrestling, you have to be coachable. Yeah. If they point things out that you need to work on those things. So I'd say find those people in your life that'll motivate you, but at the same time will help you to get to that next level and help you to grow by identifying things that you can improve on.
I think that's wonderful because certainly in higher education, we talk about our students being teachable, right? Everybody comes, they have a lot to give, as you did, as you show, and you continue to inspire so many folks, but we also have to be teachable. And one of the other things that was quite inspiring about your story tonight is just how you were able to talk about your vulnerabilities. And that's not always easy, particularly when we're in environments where we're new. There's a lot of competition that's happening in the space, and people are competing either for research grants or travel grants, or they're competing for professional opportunities. So how did you approach vulnerability through your journey?
Well, I'd say at the beginning, I tried to come off like I was indestructible, like everything was
Unstoppable.
that no one could get to me. Things didn't hurt me, but I think along the way, just that vulnerability, it helped me to just evolve. I think as soon as I started to open up, and really it took a little bit, it took for people to kind of reach out to me to pull that out of me. But then I realized, like, okay, I don't need to do this alone. I can have these people that basically put me on their shoulders and get me to where I want to be. For example, there was a scene in that film where we're talking about the letters that I received. And that's actually something that really happened when my junior year, I fell short of my national championship goal. And so I was actually contemplating not coming back my senior year to compete. It broke me that much. But I received those letters during that off season when I was just staying away from the room, and it was those kids that brought me back. It was my most painful moment. They were stepping up to help me say it's okay. You can keep pushing through this. So say it's okay to be vulnerable because you're human. It's part of it. But it's finding that support to help you get to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's beautiful, and I think that's always important for us to hear, because sometimes we think that in showing our vulnerability, we're showing our weaknesses, and that's going to hurt us. And in your story, it's just demonstrating how it's a way to bring people in, call people in, and support. And Zeke, you do that, and you're doing that this year in particular. I mean, you've done it for several years, but more importantly, I love your theme for this year, which is grit, gratitude, and brotherhood. So when we talk about this vulnerability and this competition, how are you building community amongst these young men who are striving to, have these great records in wrestling and be successful in their lives? How are you developing these young people?
Yeah, that's a great question. Not only are we developing them, we're doing it at a time when they're often competing against each other. As Anthony said, we heard in his story, not only was he on the search of himself, but also he had competition within his room. And so we have 30 wrestlers on our wrestling team, and we talk about something bigger than ourselves. And the beauty that we have Arizona State University to create that environment for us. Grit, gratitude, and brotherhood brings us together. Gratitude, when we think of gratitude, we think about being thankful, right? We're thankful for the opportunity to be a Sun Devil, an opportunity to be on the Sun Devil wrestling team. I think it's a little bit, anything we look at in life, we can look at it as a positive or a negative. And, the sun's bright, or the sun is beautiful today. It's how I look at it, or it hurts my skin and it burns me. So we try to look at our opportunity here to wrestle at Arizona State and be a part of this community by being positive, thanking our opportunity to be Sun Devil wrestlers. And so I think gratitude is like a muscle. You have to exercise it. And it's easy to do it when things are going well. Mm-hmm. The challenges are when things aren't going well. And so that's when we start to thank our brotherhood, the people next to us. Because when I'm having a bad day, I know Anthony's there for me. And the same, we're here for him. I think also, too, you can't just do the fluffy stuff. We have grit. We understand that grit really is toughness displayed daily over long periods of time. We recognize it's hard to just be optimistic all the time. We know there's going to be some element of challenge. And so we understand that we need to be gritty, that it's not always going to be easy. There are going to be challenges. And so we try to look at our experience by being thankful, but also knowing that we have to be tough. We have to be gritty. And the glue to it all is our brotherhood. We understand that we're on this goal individually to be national champions, but we're also honoring Arizona State University, its community, our families, and the challenge that we have. So we feel that brotherhood holds us together. It unifies us. It makes us, deal with the challenges daily. And it's just a beautiful thing to go through this journey when often we're competing with each other. But as Anthony will tell you, the best men in his wedding,
Yeah.
teammates, coaches, godfather to your children. And so even though we're in this short-term mentality of competing with each other, we have this blessing of teammates and family.
So graduate students know that, whoever you're inviting to your house, they're probably in your research lab right now. So be nice to them.
That's right.
Shawn, you're also known at the university for being a people developer. And this is what we're talking about, right? Developing each other, being there for each other. So can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like in your sphere and how you've done that?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me? All right. Before I start, I have to coin a phrase. If you're wondering about my outfit, I am bedeviled. This is the bedeviled look, all right? So this is it right here. Okay. Nobody's ever coined it, and I had to coin it. Developing people. First of all, I need to say that vulnerability opens you up for acts of courage. What a lot of people don't understand about vulnerability, and especially kind of in the manosphere, if I'll use that word, men seem to think that vulnerability is somehow soft and not gritty, but actually vulnerability is full of grit. To stay vulnerable, I think it might be one of the attributes my wife loves about me, is that I'm vulnerable in times, and my eyes sweat too from time to time. I think in the development of people, one of the key things I'd like to share with everybody tonight is it takes resilience. And resilience, unlike most people think, is actually a team sport in my mind. It takes a community, a village, for each of us to be resilient. And I think in development of people, it takes the development of community. So if I bring student veterans into my office, I want them to meet other student veterans in graduate school just like them so that they can build that community. And when the challenges come, they don't face them alone. Even on the wrestling team, even though it's this individual sport, it's not. And we all win because we all win. We all lose because we all lose. And that's just how it is. So I really believe that that's the first key in people development, is to build teams around one another.
And I think, Sarah, you could kind of chime in here and say more to that, because being an entrepreneur in some ways and having your own business and so forth, and that takes discipline and that takes grit. Can you share with us a little bit about how you've developed community in order to help you achieve the goals that you have right now?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. First, I just want to say I was really nervous for this panel, but after hearing Anthony's speech, I feel like I can do anything. So, this is great. I think I could speak to that in a couple of different ways. And it's, as adults, it's harder and harder to kind of find your team or your tribe, because it's not really just put out there for you, in front of you, except for like maybe teams at work and things like that. But to find your community, you have to kind of go out and search for it. And as a grad student, that's also true. And I think, for me, when I was a grad student, I was doing an online degree. And so that was even a little bit more difficult, especially when that kind of first started. But I thought ASU did a really great job in innovating and making space for that community online. And then, I was also here on campus working for ASU at the time, and I was able to kind of find my own way and kind of be my own GM and draft my own team, because ASU is so good at that, where you can just start something if it doesn't already exist. And so I felt very empowered to do that. And I was able to kind of, start my own networking program. And I joined the Graduate Student Association. And I think I learned all of those lessons to bring into entrepreneurship and kind of join the ASU Leadership Institute, for example, and find the people I want to put around me to make me successful. So, it's about really searching that out for yourself if it's not put right in front of you. And I think that we can do that with the motivation and just grit that these guys were talking about up here too.
Sure, and I think as we talk about these accomplishments now in our lives, it's not without frustration. And you did a great job illustrating that there were key moments in your journey where you were clearly frustrated. And so, in those moments, what grounded you? Like, what grounded you to walk you through those frustrations? And Coach, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Like, when you're pushing these guys to get to the best, like, what grounds us in those times of motivation?
I'd say definitely leaning on my support team around me. Just letting them know that I was dealing with something, and sometimes they could see it. Other times I had to just go out there and tell them, hey, I'm struggling right now. So leaning on those people for that energy and support, but also really taking a moment to kind of catch my breath. And I think a lot of times, like, we want to focus to get down there. I want to focus on accomplishing the goal down there, when sometimes we need to catch your breath and just take a look back and say how far I've already come. Those steps that I've already made, the progress that I made to get to this point. Celebrate those victories. Don't overlook those things, because when you do that, when you start looking and say, oh, I've done this, I've accomplished this, that gives you that energy to keep fighting through. And just reminds you, okay, we're not there yet, but we're making that progress little by little. You just keep chipping away, a lot like a wrestling match. A wrestling match in college, it's 7 minutes, broken up into 3 periods. There's a lot that can happen during that time. You can feel like you're up, you're doing great, all of a sudden you're tired and you're hitting the wall and you're losing. But if you keep fighting through and you say, okay, I'm okay, I can do this, you find that little bits of energy to fight through the end.
I love what you're saying, because sometimes with all that's happening in our lives, it's hard to just pause for a minute. Pause and reflect on what's working well, what have I done to get to where I am, and how can I draw on that to move forward. So I love that. Coach, what grounds you?
Yeah, I think that's great, Anthony, what you're saying. I keep it kind of simple. Wrestling season's long. It's very difficult. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And so we do a little bit of don't get too high with the highs, don't get too low with the lows, because there's going to be both. And so we try to stay even keel. I kind of look at how I feel, right? It's an emotion. And so I try to be really careful how I listen to my feelings, because if I listened to every feeling I got all day long, I'd be an emotional roller coaster, right? I'm just not going to, 1 minute I'm happy, then I get a call from home, it's not good, then I get something great, Anthony wins, all of a sudden I'm up and down and I'm all over the place. What I realize is I want to be in control of those feelings as much as I can. I realize that I might not feel like being a wrestling coach today. Sorry, Anthony, I can't be a wrestling coach today. Well, I have to be. Just like being a father or a husband. So I'm really careful how much I listen to my feelings. I listen to them, I hear them, then I decide how I want to process my feelings and the challenges that I have that day. I think it's probably my best way to answer that.
As we continue this conversation, one of the things that comes to mind is that there may be people here today who feel their disability, whether it's visible or invisible, is holding them back for whatever reason from pursuing their dreams in particular. So what message would you want them to hear from you right now? And what truth have you learned that could help them believe in their own strength?
I'd say I completely understand that, but what my mom taught me, it's that mentality of don't focus on what you don't have or what can hold you back. Instead, ask yourself the right question in your head. Yeah. It's not about reminding yourself why I can't. It's about asking yourself how I can. What are my opportunities right now? How can I accomplish it? And for me, making a list out, actually writing things down, getting it out of my head onto a piece of paper where I can see, okay, I have a path right here. I can make a blueprint with this. That's what helped me to get through those moments, because growing up, I definitely was overlooked. I was, facing the doubt from other people, and it started to get in my own head. But just going back to just reminding myself of what my strengths were, opportunities, and that's something that my coach echoed to me as well. He used to tell me in the wrestling room, we're going to focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. We're going to build on your strengths and find something unique to work for you. That's what we all have to do. We all have our unique strengths, our unique opportunities. Build on that and focus on that. Because there will always be something there that can hold you back, but don't waste your energy on something that you can't control.
And that also helps build confidence, which would you say? Absolutely. Yeah. And so, Shawn, you and I have had conversations in this space also, and thinking about all the work you do with our military, like, how do you speak to them with regards to helping them balance between what they feel that is holding them back, and how are you motivating them to move forward?
Well, I think you bring up this really interesting point, Dr. Aska, when you talk about possible disabilities, both physical and those that people can't see. post-traumatic stress is obviously one of those things. Our military-connected learners that go to ASU, a lot of them are veterans. Some of them are combat veterans. And maybe they struggle with moral injury. You know, some people don't know what that is. There's the possibility that they had to take a life while they were on duty, and they have to carry that with them. And those are things you don't see them, but they carry them. And so, you know, I struggle with my own post-traumatic stress from my time in Iraq, and what I found, honestly, it's a little bit like what Anthony said. The more I tell my story, the easier it begins for me to be able to grasp the reality that I'm no longer there. If I keep it all to myself and I don't write it down and I don't tell it, then I can continue to live there. And I don't want to live there anymore. And so opening up, sharing those stories, telling some things to my wife that maybe I didn't tell her for the last 17 years since I've been home. Little by little, the more I let out, the stronger I become. Then there's room, actually, to push aside the negativity bias that we all fight anyway, on top of the post-traumatic stress. And if I can make room for positivity, then I can begin to grow. And that's kind of where post-traumatic growth comes from. But you have to get rid of some of the trauma so that you can have room for growth. And I think that's the same thing on the mat. It's the same thing on the field or the court. When you begin to get rid of bad habits and you practice hard enough, then it begins to open up for growth. And then you become a winner, right? And so I think all of that kind of goes along together.
Yeah, it's all along the theme of, you know, persevering and utilizing your life experience, unpacking it, and learning from it. Not disregarding it, not pushing it aside, but really learning from it. And, you know, Sarah, you and I had some conversations about, you know, what that perseverance looked like for you. So maybe you could share a little bit here, you know, talking us with regards to self-doubt and moving past that to achieve your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wouldn't, is this thing on? Test, okay. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think self-doubt is just a part of the process. I mean, we all think we know where we're going, and that's often not what happens. You know, I think from age 12, I knew that I was going to be a journalist for the rest of my life. I knew that was in my heart, and that's what I was going to do. I was a journalist for a good chunk of time. And then I moved into being a communications strategist, and there were different avenues that I could take. That wasn't my life plan, but I think that you know, it wasn't about self-doubt. It was about uncertainty. It was about like all of those things. And when you're faced with that, you know, I don't have to reiterate what Anthony said, but you know, that's something that you have to face and think about what you're going to do next. And I think one thing that I had happen to me when I was in grad school, you know, was I had to learn how to fail. I had to learn how to fail, and I had certainly lessons in failure before, but I was kind of at an inflection point in my life at that time. And learning how to fail was a big part of it, and knowing how I could come back and continue pursuing my dreams and continue pursuing what I wanted to achieve. So I think that, you know, self-doubt is something that happens to all of us, but when we really look back and reflect on the lessons that we've learned and the things that we've accomplished in our lives, I think that motivates you to keep going. So.
I tell students and families that all the time when I have the privilege of speaking with them. I tell students, you're coming to Arizona State University. You're going to have a wonderful experience, right, Anthony? Yes. Yeah. And I've already recruited Liam here to come to ASU in a couple of years. So you're going to have a wonderful experience here. But it can't be perfect, because if it's perfect, you're not growing. There's no growth in perfection. So you've got to be willing to deal with the challenges, because that's where you learn how to build community, lean on people, develop strategies for success. So can any of you continue to talk about how you all have refueled some of the frustrations or challenges in order for that to help you pursue your dreams? Go ahead, Shawn.
I could start just by, you're going to hear like this panel talk about ways to be resilient. I need you to hear it from one of us that resiliency is not monolithic. Like, you don't all have to do all the things that we've done to bounce back in our life, because how it looks, how resilience looks for you might look different for me. Okay, so these are just some, this was best practices for me. So in the Army, I went through master resilience training, and they opened up the course by bringing a tennis ball, and they bounced the tennis ball on the floor, and they caught it. And they said, resilience is this. It is the ability for this tennis ball to lose its shape and then bounce back into its former shape to come back faster and better than it was. And I was like, wow, that's resilience. But the more I thought about it is I thought about maybe I'm not a tennis ball. Maybe when you throw Shawn on the ground, I'm a football. And I don't bounce just straight up. I go, you ever seen a football? Yeah, you don't know which way it's going to go. And I think that's the same for all of us, that we have to realize what makes Anthony resilient is going to be different than what makes Shawn resilient. And I just wanted to point that out for everybody to think about.
You're right. Everybody's journey is going to be different. And in that space, we all have to be willing, going back to vulnerability, to raise our hand and to connect with somebody. I like to use the term a caring adult also, who you could sit with and talk through your fears, possibly talk through your failures, so they could walk you through some of the options that you have here, right? And so as you think about the people that you all have connected with, what have you learned about who you've chosen to be part of that circle, that trusting circle? Because I tell my kids all the time, everybody's not your friend, right? Everybody's not in it to help you win. So how did you all decipher, as you're thinking about moving forward, who are you bringing into that circle? Who are you trusting? And think about our graduate students again, many of them relocating here not knowing anyone, right? How are our experiences able to maybe offer them some insight about options? And then Anthony?
Yeah, so I think one thing I would say is when we talk about like who you surround yourself with, I think one of those people that immediately comes to mind for me is my dad. And like Anthony's mom, my dad was kind of my biggest cheerleader and biggest supporter in just about everything in life. And so, thinking about what he has done for me, he went to every softball game that I ever played. He went to every track meet I ever ran. And, he was always encouraging me to do anything that I set my mind to. And when I decided I was coming to ASU, I had to make a choice because I wanted to play softball here, but it was the best team in the country at the time. And so I chose academics over athletics, and I didn't play softball at ASU. My dad was a college football athlete, and so to me, in my mind, I just always regretted that because he encouraged me to walk on, and if I had seen Unstoppable, maybe that would have helped me walk on or attempt to walk on. But I did not attempt to walk on to play softball at ASU. So for me, that was a really tough decision to make, and I always wondered if my dad was ever disappointed in me for not having done that. But then when I came back to ASU to get my grad degree, I was a master's student, and I was trying to find my tribe and trying to find people. And one of those teams was the ASU cycling team, and I had been competing in cycling for a while. And this was like a redemption tour for me because, I had this opportunity to compete at the highest level and possibly beat U of A in a championship. Yes. And so, I competed for them, and I tried to get better and better, and then it was the final season. I hadn't won a championship yet. And it looked like I was going to be tapped to win that championship out of our entire team. And so this involves, long story short, collecting cumulative points over a season. So you have to do multiple races, lots of races. And the first race I competed in, it was a 60-mile road race with 30 miles of climbing. I do not look like a climber, and I'm not a climber. And so that was a grueling, grueling race, and I definitely lost that race. And I could have just given up right then and there, threw in the towel and say, this isn't for me, I'm never going to win this championship. But I kept going because I thought, maybe there's a possibility here. And, I kept collecting points, and then by the end of the season, the last race that we had, it was my kind of race. And it was either going to be me or U of A. And my teammate led me out, and we won. And so I was so proud to bring home that championship for ASU, for my team, for my dad, and for me. And that was just like my tribe that I found throughout grad school. And it was just a great way to be able to kind of persevere. Yeah. So,
Anthony, have anything to? Yeah, go.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I kind of approach it like you think of like a video game. Sometimes you can create your characters. For me, I think of it. It's how I want to create a champion, and that's how I find the people in my life. It's a champion to me is someone who's humble, who holds himself accountable, who keeps himself at a high standard, who is coachable. And so for me in my life, I was blessed with a mom who had a high standard for me. I had a coach who would also just have that, saying, I'm going to hold you at a high standard. I'm going to hold you accountable. Those little things that I look at and say, this is what I want to be like. This is how I need to be successful. I'm going to find those people that I respect who emulate those characteristics so that I can learn from them, that I can grow. And, that's what's gotten me through. And I'm blessed with that close circle that has, to this day, have pushed me through and helped motivate me to get through some things in my life.
Go ahead, Shawn.
Yeah. Life is like this. It's not like a box of chocolate. It's valleys and mountaintops. Mountaintops are about this wide when you think about them, but the valleys are long and wide. And I always think about in the valley is where growth actually happens. So if you think, I'm a Nebraska kid, born and raised, and we have cows in Nebraska, like more cows than people there, actually. But in the valley is where all the poop is. So everything's very fertile. Everything grows there. And so when I pick a tribe, I think about when the poop hits the fan, who's still standing there with me? Because when I'm on the mountaintop, there isn't a lot of room for a lot of people. It's kind of like Shawn. I won this. I did this. But I would have never won that or did that without what happened in the valley. And so those people that stood by me through all of that, through thick and thin, and its family and its friends and its soldiers and its people, that's my tribe. That's how I know. They stuck with me.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. And, the ironic thing that we all learned about each other is that we're all actually athletes up here. We all have played different sports. I played volleyball in college. And when I think about that grit, going back to grit a little bit, and resilience, I remember my senior year, I was going into my senior year in college, and my coach was all in my head. I don't know if y'all still do this. I don't know if it's allowed.
No,
Okay.
we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that.
No.
We don't crawl up in heads.
No, okay. But he was all in my head, and he was like, hey, I've recruited some really good volleyball players. You need to be prepared. You may not start. You want to be an outside hitter? You got to jump higher. And that hit me to the core. Here I am, played 3 years. I'm going into my senior year. I'm going to be a starter and I'm going to play, right? Nothing is ever guaranteed. Now, what I learned later on, because as we talk about some of these successes, as you talk about your success, we didn't start there, right? We had different starting points. And so for me, for my senior year for volleyball, we had these green, large steps. They were green. I don't know why. I can't tell you. My school colors were not green. And they were boxes, and the goal was for us to jump those, and supposedly that helped us jump higher. I spent my whole summer jumping those boxes because he was like, I recruited some people who are going to take your spot. So I went all summer working out. When those first year students arrived and I was ready to, they didn't have nothing on me. But they didn't have anything on me when they got recruited. No, I'm just saying that. I say that from the perspective of coach put in my head, you got to push harder. You got to dig deeper. You got to want it more. And that's what I learned through that experience, right? And I've carried that through my career. I got to want it more. I got to dig deeper. I have to see what it is that I'm trying to accomplish and surround myself with people who have that same vision or have that same ability. So grit matters, being resilient matters. How have you all kind of lived that out a little bit in your journey, recognizing of experiences when you were younger that has actually helped you now in this season of your life? Because we didn't start here. I didn't start as a deputy vice president, right? I didn't start there. So something from you all's past that you see as a thread to get you here today.
My turn?
Yes.
I ultimately make all my life decisions, including my community, through three filters: family, faith, and love. So I'm going to run every decision I make through those three filters. That is the basis of my life's decisions. I really believe that the defining marker of success in life, wrestling, school, family, is really character. And we're looking, and I'm hearing it from the whole panel and these unique individual examples of how they persevered. And I just really believe that defining marker of success, character, which is the easy stuff: discipline, dedicated, desire, passion, which we all say. But it's also the other things, which is honorable, respectful, loyalty, trustworthy. So as we're running these things through this filter and we're looking at the people that we surround ourselves in this life of character, and we also understand, and just to make a point on character, is we all understand that, well, for me, I understand the defining marker of success is character, and we're looking for kids that come into the Double Devil program with high character. We also know they make mistakes. We want those kids to come and make those fail forwards, as we say, right? So we all understand that the kids that have high character are going to make mistakes, but kids with high character are not going to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. They're going to learn from them, right? They're going to say, oop, I'm not going to do that again. That got in my way. And I think that's where that true growth occurs, where we start to realize as we're running things through our filter that, we make those decisions and we base those on, at least for the kids that are coming into the Sun Devil Wrestling program, kids that have high character.
Right. Yeah. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And, to stay in alignment with the theme that Dr. Wentz shared with us, adapt today to shape tomorrow, knowing what those attributes are that are critical to our success that runs through a thread through our life are absolutely important. Other attributes, Anthony or Sarah, Shawn, that you want to add that Zeke shared that are critical?
I feel like I'm always the guy with the saying, so I'm just going to say this. In the Army, they taught us in our non-commissioned officer book. There's a saying, and I stick with it, and it goes along with the theme. When change occurs on the battlefield, you have two choices. You can adapt and overcome, or become extinct. Right? That speaks a lot. But I think it's also for life. Not extinction, but if we don't adapt and overcome in graduate school, our grades become extinct. Because there's always going to be something that seems maybe too overwhelming for you or for me that we have to adapt and overcome. Because we want this thing to happen. We want our degree, we want the dream job, we want to be unstoppable. The only way we do those things is we adapt. And I feel like that's the thread in my life. I've adapted from a childhood in which I was abused. I adapted through part of my growing up, being made fun of. I've always adapted to overcome these obstacles. And even today, even right now, in this moment, I'm adapting to what's in front of me. And I think that's the thing that drives me through. Because if I couldn't do that, I would probably be extinct.
Great point. Go ahead, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say, I think, like I said earlier, I had kind of this life plan and I knew everything that was going to happen with me. And, I had everything under control and everything like that. And I think just really adapting to uncertainty is critical in just life lessons, I think, because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. And I wanted to read this quote that Malala Yousafzai, a Nobel laureate who maybe you all are familiar with, said on the Jimmy Fallon show. I think she was on there last week or so. But this is part of her memoir that just came out recently. You might inherit an identity, but someday the river may rise and carry you to a new place. Trust the water, trust yourself to float. And so I think like that was just so poignant in a moment, I think, where we're all just facing uncertainty. I mean, I think there's so much uncertainty out there in the world right now. And I think trusting yourself and knowing that you are going to persevere, that you always have and that you always will, and that you're going to be just fine. So I think like for all the graduate students out there, just think about that and think of how far you've come and how you're going to continue on that journey, and it's going to be fine.
And I'm going to be this voice too. When you get fine is defined for you differently. And in the process, there are people, particularly I'm speaking to our graduate students, there are people in the environment that are there to support you. Whether it's the Dean of Students office, whether it's the counseling office, whether it's your faculty advisor, or it's that lab partner, there are people here. But Anthony, I want to go back to you because you said that people called you, and I think there's an important piece of how we are caring for others in our circles, right? That we're being very mindful about how people are showing up and how we could pay attention. And then there's a responsibility of responding to and receiving that care. So I don't know if you could speak a little bit more with your coach or with your teammates about how that unfolded for you over time, or how you actually do it for people now.
I think I learned from my people in my life, it's a leader. I say a leader is someone who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And so I had specific people in my life that they really just took the time to show me that path, and I could watch what they were doing and watch them be successful. And I learned that you have to step outside of that comfort zone and find that room for growth. It's not about being perfect. It's about finding room for growth and finding room for improvement. Every single time I stepped out there on the mat, it wasn't to be perfect. It was to be better. Right? And just that's the same way you approach life as well. Right? My record, I lost 22 times, but those were 22 lessons for me. Every single time I pulled something away from it, I went back, I plugged it in, and I adjusted. Life is the same way. As you're going through, you're adjusting, you're learning, and then finding those people. Say, okay, they have something there that I want to apply to myself. Just like in wrestling, I like that style, I like what they're doing out there. I need them to teach me, or I need to learn to do that. So just going through and adjusting and finding the room for improvement, and finding those that can help you improve, and learning from the lessons along the way.
I'm just always impressed as I'm listening to you about your willingness to draw in from others and to apply it to your life. We see a lot in the world, right? And we see things that we like, but taking the time to apply it to your life is a whole different level. Like, I'm just thinking about folks here. What are ways in which you've seen other people do something that you saw was helpful in their life that you said, you know what, I'm going to apply this to mine?
I think that this doesn't happen unless you push aside the ego. This is the whole thing, especially with you, Anthony. The first time I met you, I'm like, this guy doesn't even have an ego. He's this champion of champions, and he doesn't even walk in a space of showing that. So I think what it takes, and what I've seen in the people around me that I try to emulate, is how can I be more like that? How can I better push Shawn aside a little bit and allow these people to inject things into me? The beautiful things that I see in people, even up here on this stage. How can I get Shawn out of the way and then allow for that to come? Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, ego is a big thing. How did you deal with your ego? I mean, how did you deal with ego? Not that
I think I learned through wrestling a lot of humility. I think there's some times I felt like I was ready to go, and my opponent showed me I wasn't ready to go. And one thing about me, getting into wrestling, my high school coach said, okay, we need to find a style that's going to work for you specific, that's going to be unique to you. So if you saw in that video, one thing that I do that's very unique, I would drop down to my knee from neutral position. That's something most wrestlers, they're standing up. I didn't like that at the beginning because it was unique to me. It was, everyone else wasn't doing it. So I fought that for the longest time. And my high school coach actually called me out one day. He said, look, he said, your ego is standing in your own way of success right now. He said, you can continue doing what you're doing right now and keep fighting this because you want to be like everybody else, or you can grasp something that's specifically for you that can help you to improve. So that moment for me was definitely a check in my humility and my ego. And when I said, okay, I'm going to do it your way, coach, I'm going to listen, I started to see that success that I wanted to little by little. But that for me was just a valuable, life-changing moment where I was able to take it off the wrestling mat as well into everything else that I did, whether it was academics, whether it was my personal life, just being willing to have that person in my life that I respected that would be willing to coach me and take that coaching advice.
Absolutely. I mean, I love what you said because oftentimes we're comparing ourselves to others. And here you were fighting that till finally it clicked for you and said, no, I got to be my own person in this place. And Coach, you're probably helping your guys be their individual wrestlers, their individual selves.
Yeah, it's a lot of growth is occurring in the wrestling room. I started to think about Anthony's experience. Have you ever had your face shoved in the ground?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever had your arm put behind your back?
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about humility? Wrestling is the ultimate place to learn it. When you want to get up off the ground and someone says, I don't think you get to do that today. It's the ultimate lesson in learning about yourself, right? And when things become very difficult. And I think it's just really being encouraging. There's no secret sauce to this thing. It's love and hard work, passion, and care for people, because a lot of kids get their face pushed down in the ground during practice every day. So you got to go put your arm around them and say, hey, you know what? Your day's going to come. Hang in there. Keep working hard. You're doing it well. Fast story, I was a freshman at ASU. I went to ASU. Thank you. 1985 as a freshman. That dates me. And Gary Barros was an All-American senior, fifth-year senior. And needless to say, probably like you, was getting my butt kicked every day my freshman year. And I had this guy, Gary Barros, who was kicking my butt, shoving my face to the ground, pulling my arm behind my back, kicking me, pushing me, shoving me. And I was like, man, this is just practice. And I thought we were friends, but he didn't care. He was all over me. I went home that night, 9 p.m. I get a call on the wall phone, right, on the wall phone. And long cord, not cordless yet. And it was Gary Barros. And I'm like, hey, Gary, what's going on? Hey, Zeke, I just wanted to let you know you're doing a great job. Hang in there. Keep battling. Keep fighting. You're doing a good job. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that. Next day, we show up to practice. I didn't recognize that guy. Here he comes again. Boom, shoving my head around, shoving my face in the ground, pulling my arm behind my back, kicking me in the leg. And I'm like, okay. So it was kind of weird. And then that night, guess what happens? Hey, this is Gary. You're doing a great job hanging there. I said, now you're messing with me. You're kicking my butt in practice. You're being nice to me in the evening. And as we know, he was trying to reach me, right? And we're all different, right? The buttons are different for all of us. And I had someone that cared about me, and best friends today. Gary comes to my house, stays at my house twice a year. He lives in California. But just that journey of people who care about you and how you go through it. And so certainly every kid in our room gets that same treatment 30 years later, because that life is about the human struggle.
I love it. I know, Sarah, you're going to add, but I love what you said about we got to go through it. Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a board member of the Phoenix Women's Sports Association, and what we do is, help women and girls feel empowered to reach their potential through their athletic abilities, and we provide grants and scholarships and things like that. But these guys are up here talking about humility, and I just had this thought, that I'm kind of thinking in the opposite way of that, because what really motivates me is watching women's sports. I mean, when you think of, how many people here watch the WNBA or watch basketball? Thank you. Yeah, go Mercury, courtside season ticket holder. So, when I go to those games, and I've been going for a really long time, I see this total display of power and strength, and that is motivational to me, and it's motivational to a lot of girls. And also, I think, just the community that they have created around various issues. I mean, when you look back to 2020 and Breonna Taylor and some of the things that you can see on the movie on Amazon that was a documentary called The Dream. And that is just so motivational, I think, to me, and being able to see that and outwardly showcase that is really important, especially now. So.
That's awesome. I know we're coming close to time, but I have to get this in because I can see the young folks in the room. So lots of folks in here are connected to youth. What is our advice to them as they're influencing, evolving these young people to also be unstoppable? Thinking about the context in which we are, what's your advice to us caring adults in raising these younger, unstoppable kids today?
I'm blessed with the opportunity now to be a high school wrestling coach. And so my message to my kids, my team, I tell them, you're chasing your greatness. I'm here to help you chase your greatness. And we don't measure that by first place, state champ, gold medals. It's just giving your very best effort. It's just finding a solution, finding opportunities, and not making excuses for yourself. Just doing the best that you have. And, sometimes you're going to lose. Sometimes you're going to get knocked down. It's okay. Just get back up. Just keep trying. And that's what we celebrate. It's the effort. It's the struggle that you're going through and that you keep going through. You keep fighting. You keep getting back up. That, to me, is what unstoppable is. I've faced a lot of losses in my career. There were a lot of ups and downs, but it was just the people along the way motivating me, saying, just keep giving your best. Just get back up. Keep pushing. And the more you do that, the more opportunities and the more doors open for you. And these days, there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of, the distraction, social media, all that. There's a ton of things out there. So it's just being that positive role model. You're saying, okay, I got your back. Chase your greatness. Let's not make the excuses. Let's find the solutions. Let's see what you can do. See how far you can go.
Awesome. Coach, how you helping us with our young kids?
Yeah, I think sports is a tool. Life is a tool, school, university. I believe wrestling, like sport, is a pathway to an education. So I think we got to remember why we do it. We start this journey as a young person in sports, in school, and ultimately we know that it's about the educational process, right? So we're learning, we're teaching, right? We're sharing and we're showing them the pathway, all the beauty and the great things that happen, the challenges and the struggles that go along the way. And just like I think Anthony said, be encouraging. And I don't think there, again, is any secret sauce to what we're talking about. Love, hard work, passion, dedication, watching young people grow through that, make mistakes, fail forward, is all part of the journey.
Yeah, I think, as my colleague over here, Shawn, had said at our ASU Leadership Institute, it's about finding your why and your purpose. I think that's always going to be underscored, and I think what these guys said also. And then I also think, in this day and age, with instant gratification and constantly wanting that, I really think that teaching patience and knowing that this isn't going to happen like this, like we see on social media, knowing all those videos where people are, shooting basketballs from 200 feet up in the air and they're making the shot. How many times did it take for them to do that? It wasn't one time. So knowing that that's not going to happen that way, and that there's patience is a virtue, but at the same time that you really have to work for it and you have to work hard.
I have a poem that I wrote. It's Stand, and it's an acrostic, if you know what that is. Stand. Start everything you do with love. Be conscious about it. Make every effort to show it and receive it. Take the temperature of every room. Be patient and let things come to you. They will, I promise. Accept that you will fall. If you know it, the pain will be more bearable. Negotiate your rising. Learn to get up from the fall when you are ready, not when everybody else tells you to. Draw. Draw with your pencil. Draw with every breath deeply. Draw on the wisdom of your journey and draw on the well of the friendships along the way. Stand. Yeah, that's what I'd tell them.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. I would tell them be kind to themselves. Be kind to themselves. Our young people are very anxious and they're living these isolated lives. for different reasons and so forth. So definitely be kind to yourself. And I love what you said, Coach, about sports as a pathway for people and for their lives. And obviously that's been very instrumental in your life. And so for all of us, just continuing to think about being kind to ourselves and our young people being kind to themselves. So Anthony, here you go. Has your definition of success, has it grown? Has it changed? Has it evolved? I mean, you've shared your journey with millions of people through your book and through your movie. I still tear up when I see even just the trailer. So looking at where you are today and thinking back of the challenges that you face, how has, if at all, your idea of unstoppable evolved?
Yeah, I think, for me, kind of mentioned, success now, it's that chasing greatness. I know for the longest time it was first or last. I was like win or it's failure. And so that mentality for me at a certain point, it was exhausting and it kind of broke me down. But my senior year, I had a different outlook on everything. It was those kids that put it in my head, I just need to give my very best effort right now. I just need to go in there, whatever the result is, as long as I know I tried my best, as long as I know leading up to this, I put everything I had into it to prepare, I'm good with that. And I approach my life the same way now. As a coach, as a father, as a husband, I'm just trying to give my best. I'm trying to learn every single day and improve. And to me, unstoppable is just constantly moving forward. That's unstoppable. Move forward, one step at a time. It doesn't matter how big the step is. It's the little things that you celebrate. The tiny steps make a big difference at the end of the day if you can continue in that process. So for me, that's what it's about, finding improvement in all my life, just all the little things in my life that I can build on.
I think that's awesome. That's awesome. Are you going to go for another Guinness World Record?
I thought about it for a little bit, and I broke 3 Guinness World Records for pull-ups, and I after the most pull-ups in 24 hours, I tore my bicep. For those of you who didn't know, in my attempt. So I tore my bicep during my attempt. I was 9 hours in, a little over 3,000 pull-ups in, so I was ahead of the record where I needed to be. Luckily, partial tear, no surgery. But now my goal, I'm a high school coach. So I love to be on the mat with some of my wrestlers now to push them. And I just want to be able to stay intact for one day when my son wrestles. So I'm done with the physical goals I'm chasing after. Now it's just more helping these kids reach their goals and helping to stay in shape and get ready for my kid.
Yeah, you sound like me. I'm done with the physical goals. This has been absolutely wonderful, and all of the insight from all of our panelists. We continue to hear about resilience. We hear about grit. We heard about leadership. We heard about mindset. We heard about grounding ourselves with family, being very thoughtful about what motivates us, what our purpose is, and what our why is. So I want to thank the panelists for sharing their insight and their wisdom with all of us today. And more importantly, again, I want to reiterate my thankfulness to all of you, to the graduate college who are here, who participated, who gave the questions. And I'm going to do something different. I'm going to ask the panelists to stand up with me and actually thank you all for tonight.
Thank you, everybody.